One of the best strategies on how to use Social Security I've ever heard. And this is going to blow your mind, dude. I'm going to be a mind blower in my Georgia Bulldogs hat and my Notre Dame shirt. Look at that. Don't you have any loyalty, Scanlon? I have no loyalty other than the highest bidder. So if you want to be loyal to me, you hit like in this YouTube channel, like and subscribe, and wait till the end where I share with you the lessons of the world. All right, so stay through the whole video. All right, so this is my man Eric, what's his name? Eric Hurst, professor over at University of Chicago Business School, and the director of the Becker Friedman Institute, which I'm sure is a free market kind of thing. We talked about him the other day on the channel. I forgot what we talked about. I was going to do a video on my live stream yesterday on locals. I was going to do a video on him, and I just got tired. We didn't end up talking about that. So I forgot what we talked about last night's live stream. But if you want to join my locals live stream every Wednesday at 7, just click on the doobly duke and sign up for it. Anyway, so this right here is Social Security and unsecured debt. Oh, and by the way, I just emailed Eric Hurst, too. I just emailed him. I had, obviously, literally hadn't emailed me back. We'll see if he does. I said, this is from 2004. You can see in my formerly nicotine-stained hands right here. 2004 white paper. I said, I wonder if he's done any updates, and I'd like to see what your thoughts on this now, given that it's even worse for youngins today than it was in 2004. So here's his abstract from NBER, National Bureau of Economic Research. Most households simultaneously hold both unsecured debt on which they pay an average of 10% year interest and Social Security wealth on which they earn less than 2%. We show that allowing households to use Social Security wealth to pay off debt and exempting young households from Social Security contributions, but requiring higher contributions later in life leads to increases in welfare for both types of households and significant increases in consumption and savings, and reduces debt for optimizing households. Dude, it's fantastic. This is, I tell you, man, this is so great right here. So, and then I said, I asked Grok, I said, Grok, give me an IRR, internal rate of return of Social Security. Let's see what old Grok says right here. So I said, Grok, give me an IRR for, let me let Knucklehead out. If I wait until I'm 67, I treat my taxes as an investment relative to my Social Security taxes, my internal rate of return, net of inflation, my real rate of return is 2.4%. That's not bad at all. If I take it at 62, it's 2.1. Not bad at all. And that's why the debate, that's why we were talking about, Eric, the other day, about the debate about when to take Social Security. But relative to the S&P 500, that's significantly below 100%. So my real rate of return on my Social Security is 2.4. The S&P 500 is 4.6% above that. Now, I'm not saying you got to be careful comparing apples to oranges here. But at the end of the day, the internal rate of return on my Social Security isn't great. In fact, it's getting lower the younger you are. Right now, let's see here. Hang tight. Pablo or Finney. For a single male earning the medium salary, the internal rate of return for someone born in 2000 is 1.4. 1.6 for a single female. So if you're 25 years old today, your rate of return on Social Security is about 1.5%, depending on if you're a male or woman. Not good, man. And the more money you make, the less the rate of return is. So that's not good, especially if I'm also consuming, or borrowing, I should say, at a 10 to 12% rate on an unsecured debt. The starting point for our analysis is the observation that currently households have about $7 billion in this is 2004. It's got significantly worse now. $700 billion in unsecured debt on which they pay 10% a year, and $11 trillion in Social Security wealth on which they earn less than 2%. As a nation, we are apparently borrowing on credit cards and saving in a passbook savings account, which is puzzling, apparently inconsistent with no arbitrage, and that's inconsistent with any conventional model. So you would not borrow on your credit card to put it in a savings account. That doesn't make sense. In our sample of households under the age of 40, 62% have unsecured debt. Again, this is from 20 years ago. We show that if households could access their Social Security wealth to pay off debt, only 17% would still have debt. And for that 17%, total debt would be dramatically reduced. Well, freaking 100%. Keep going here, man. We specified that the interest rate on unsecured debt, i.e. borrowing rate, exceeds the interest rate on bonds, Such an assumption is consistent with the pattern of observed interest rates. All right, 100%. And that, again, we're borrowing at unsecured to put it in a savings account. In our first experiment, we allow households currently in the Social Security system to access their Social Security wealth to pay off debt. All right. In our second experiment, we build on an idea that a couple of economists did back in 1987 to exempt young households from Social Security contributions. Under both proposals, households would contribute more to Social Security via higher taxes later in life to compensate for the reductions while young. Such an assumption ensures unchanged Social Security benefits upon retirement. Both our experiments show an increase in savings, a reduction in debt, and a substantial increase in lifetime equivalent consumption. That's right here. For example, moving from our existing system to one where households under 30 are exempt from contributing to Social Security, but are forced to make up later in life, it raises equivalent consumption by 3.4%. It goes on to say, it is easy to see that exempting young households from Social Security taxes will tilt household Social Security contributions so they're more in line with desired life cycle spending or saving. Given realistic income profiles, most households under the age of 30 want to borrow, not to save, because they're building household formation. They're just getting married, they're getting jiggy, they're knocking out some kids, they're buying a house. Check this out. By either giving an exemption or allowing a withdrawal but requiring higher contributions later, the government is effectively loaning money to households. We call the interest rate on such loans the internal borrowing rate. The conditions we impose imply that the IBR equals the internal rate of return on the Social Security investment. But the welfare gain from those loans are so big that the government could even charge a higher interest rate and still make households better off, as well as the government. Let's see. We show that if we increase the internal borrowing rate from 2% to 5%, it still leads to a significant increase in wealth for the households, and it makes the government better off too. Why? Because in other words, we show the government could borrow at 2 in the bond market, lend at 5, and still make households better off, and they'd be better off too. Why? Because right now the government is basically subsidizing the credit card companies. We're saying you guys borrow at 10, or the credit loan at 10, and we're going to give a 2% rate of return on investments. Well, we can say, screw the middleman here. Let's screw the credit cards. Let's let the government do it. And they can charge at 2. They borrow at 2, charge at 5. And you're still better off because you're not paying 10% to the man, the credit card companies. I just try to let you out. So we're going to skip through a lot of my highlights and stuff and just go right to the conclusion here. This is fantastic. I love it. I think it's a great strategy. Hold on a second. Apparently he does. He just wants to stand there. Okay. Let's see. Allow the 30-year-old household to withdraw cash from Social Security. To make sure this is an admissible plan, we require that the household increases subsequent contributions from 10.6% of their labor income to 12.8% of labor income later on, which assures us the retirement replacement rate equals 43% guaranteed by the existing system. It's cold out there, Finnegan. Gotta close the door. And then households use most, but not all of their Social Security wealth to pay down debt. Since households must continue to make Social Security contributions, our proposal does not eliminate the problem of simultaneously debt and borrowing, although it does reduce it dramatically. So we're not saying, hey, we're going to borrow at 10. We're not going to stop borrowing at 10 to fund a savings account. That doesn't make sense. We're still going to say, hey, we're still going to put money into Social Security with an internal rate of return of 2%. But the issue is we've since also paid down the debt that we're charging 5%. Eliminating the debt allows the households to save in equities earlier and reduce debt payments, resulting in a wealth effect, which in turn causes households to want higher consumption. 100%. We also consider 3 age-based exemptions. No contributions before the age of 30, no contributions before the age of 40, and no contributions before the age of 50. As we discussed, the latter two policies will require large changes in households' marginal tax rate after expiration expires. So if you don't make any contributions till you're after the age of 40, you're not going to be paying 6.2%, you're going to be paying more, simply because we're going to try to max to get you a 43% replacement rate, which is kind of what Social Security does, about 43% replacement rate. All three exemption programs ensure that households have no debt by the time they start contributing to Social Security. Pretty good, man. I'm just going to go straight to the conclusion. In this paper, we show that the current Social Security system leads many households to save at a low interest rates and borrow at high interest rates. We show empirically that simply allowing households to use the money that paid into Social Security while they're young to pay off debt would allow many households to get out of debt. To get out of debt, and others to dramatically reduce their exposure to high interest unsecured debt. And on top of that, they'll be better off financially because they're not being burdened by this high secured debt, unsecured debt at 10%. We show that our options generate comparable and often higher welfare increases than popular proposals to increase the return on investment in Social Security, i.e. invest in the stock market. We don't offer individual retirement accounts in Social Security. There are no uncertainty about returns. We're looking for a 43% replacement rate for the bulk of the people, which is, again, what Social Security is. Anyway, I think it's a fantastic idea. Let's see. The main change is a dramatic reduction in consumer unsecured debt. Yep. Good stuff. I think it's a great idea. We'll see if he's got any. Again, from 2004. If you want, I'll put the link in the show notes. Lots of graphs if you like graphs. I just think it's fantastic, especially in the household formation stage, capital formation stage, household formation stage. They're not, look, you should save unequivocally, and you are being forced to save, but you're only being forced to save at an internal rate of return of 1% essentially on Social Security. It's not good, especially if you've got 10, 15% freaking unsecured debt out there. I'd even say now that it's harder and harder to find a mortgage, to buy a mortgage, we need more people to be household and capital formation and equity formation and be able to buy a home. And the way to do that is that, hey, we're only giving you less than a 1% rate of return on your Social Security. Maybe we could use that a little bit more strategically. Now, again, we're going to have to make it up on the back end while you're making bank like your old buddy Josh here's on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? But when their kids are out of the house, the mortgage is paid down, yet you're in your highest earning capacity, that's when you're going to have to redo those Social Security contributions that you took out. Now, I hear the peanut gallery. Yeah, but they're just going to take on more debt. Maybe. There's always a what if. They still got to pay the Social Security tax in the future, though. You see what I'm saying? So even if they use this Social Security wealth to pay, and turn around, pay off debt, and then take on more debt, their taxes are still going to be higher in the future to assure that 43% Social Security replacement rate. So that's on you. At some point, there is some personal responsibility here. That's just a fact. But as we sit here today, it's skewed against the young household formation people because the debts are so high. The cost is so high, and yet we're only giving a 1% internal rate of return on Social Security. All right, love your thoughts. Smash that like button. We'll see ya.